Hi everyone and welcome back to Knot Weave Stitch. My name is Gisela and in this week's episode we're going to be looking at the 5 foundation knots in macrame. This week I've created a video to accompany the podcast as well, so you can listen and watch the video. So for the very first knot I'm going to show you how to make a lark's head knot. So this is your tying on knot and usually the most simple knot to do in macrame. So for this knot I'm going to tie onto a wooden dowel, but you could also tie onto a key ring, another bit of string, all sorts of things you can use. The first thing that you will want to do is cut your cord to your chosen length. For the cord here I have used 2 meters, that's 200 centimeters, and I've folded this in half. With the dowel on the table, we're going to take the cord and pop the fold over the top of the dowel. Once the folded cord is over the dowel, we're going to take the fold and we're going to tuck it behind and underneath the dowel. I'm right-handed, so I like to take the fold behind and down to the right-hand side, but if you're left-handed you can take it down to the left or you can take it straight down behind. It doesn't matter, it's whatever feels comfortable for you. So where the fold is, there is now a gap, and I'd like to put my hand in that gap. So I put my hand from behind into that gap and I'm going to grab these 2 long loose cords and they're going to go through that hoop, that gap where my hand is ready and waiting. So I'm going to grab the loose cords and pull them through the gap all the way through, and then you will be left with this kind of shape. So here the fold, that halfway point, should be over the top of the long loose cords. Now if they're behind, if they're the other way around, please don't panic. What you've made is the reverse lark's head knot, a backwards lark's head knot, which is absolutely fine. That will work for this too, but we're trying to do a normal one here today. So the fold should be at the front over the top of the long loose cords. To finish off, all we have to do is tighten. So we're going to grab those 2 long loose cords and pull them down, tug them down, and we will tighten up that knot so it sits right near the top. So this is your lark's head knot, and there is a horizontal line that sits just underneath the dowel. Now this is the front and this is the back of the lark's head knot where there's a little gap, that's the back. And if you flip it back over, where the line is just beneath the dowel, that's the front of your lark's head knot. And there you have your first macrame knot. Just to show another example, I'm now going to do the lark's head knot on a keyring. So again, I've used the same length of cord, so 200 centimeters or 2 meters, but you can do it whatever length you would like. And I've folded that in half and placed it over the top of the keyring, so that the fold, the halfway point, is in the center of the keyring. I then push through the fold through the center of the keyring towards the back, so away from me. I then bring the fold from the back down to one side. For me, I'm right-handed, so I like to take it down to the right, but again, like before, you can take it down to the left or straight down. I then place my hand in the gap where the loop is, and I'm going to grab those 2 long loose cords and they're going to go through that hole, that loop. So grab the 2 cords and pull them all the way through the gap, the loop, and then we are back to this shape here. So the fold, that halfway point, should be over the top of the 2 long loose cords. If it's the other way around, like I said, you would be making a reverse lark's head knot. So we're going to grab those 2 long loose cords and give them a pull down, and that will tighten up your lark's head knot so that it will sit just underneath the keyring with the horizontal line just underneath the keyring there. That's the front of your lark's head knot. And then when I flip it over onto the back, there's a little gap, and that is the back of your lark's head knot. So the second knot I'm going to show you is the half square knot. And if you do the half square knot over and over again, you will form a beautiful spiral. Again, I'm going to take a 2-meter cord, 200 centimeter cord, and fold it in half. And then I'm going to drape that over the top of my dowel to make a lark's head knot to attach the cord first. So again, I place the fold over the dowel and tuck the fold behind and down from the dowel. I then take the 2 long loose cords and I pull them through the gap, the little loop that's been made. Once the 2 long loose cords are through the gap, I then pull to tighten. I then take a second cord, again which I've cut at 2 meters or 200 centimeters, and I attach that to the dowel using a lark's head knot. Now if you're working on the table, I would recommend sticking the dowel down just so it doesn't move around while you're making the knots. You could always hang this up on S-hooks or find your own way of attaching this, but I'm going to use a bit of masking tape to stick this down to the table just so it doesn't move around. I then like to position out the cords so that I can label them up. So on your left hand side, that is cord number 1 or string number 1. String number 2 and 3 are in the middle, and string number 4 is on the right hand side. The outer 2, so 1 and 4, are your working strings. They do all the work making the knots, and you will find that they tend to get a lot shorter. The 2 on the inside, so 2 and 3, are your filler strings, and they are basically the backbone. They are the spine of your knot. They don't do anything except for there for kind of support and structure. The working strings do all the knot work, and the filler strings are there for support. For this knot, the half square knot, it eats into the cord quite quickly, so you'll find that the working strings will get a lot shorter than the filler strings. Any excess that you have, you can always trim away and save for another project. To start the half square knot, you're going to take string number 1 and bring it over and across strings number 2, 3 and 4. So string number 1 should be over the top of all 3 of the other cords. I'm then going to take string number 4 and bring it to the front. So I like to hold down the other strings with my other hand and take string number 4 and bring it over the top of the tail of string number 1. So you can see string number 4 is now at the front. So you can use your hand for the placement there to help you make sure that you've done it correctly. So string number 4 is now at the front. And now what we're going to do is take string number 4 and it's going to go diagonally underneath the filler strings to the hole on the left. So underneath strings 2 and 3 to the hole on the left. So I like to pinch it between my fingers, and then I'm going to take string number 4 and go diagonally underneath the filler strings to the hole on the left. And before I pull that through the hole on the left there, I'm actually going to place my thumb in the middle here where the other strings cross over, just to keep them nice and tight. You don't need to do this, but I find it's more useful. So I'm going to put my thumb there, and then I'm going to take string number 4 and put it all the way through the hole on the left. And then I can let go, and you will find you have this kind of shape. You might need to move the cords around, but this is your only checkpoint, so you can use this to check if you've done it correctly. So string number 1 should be at the front of where they all cross over, and string number 4 should be at the back where they all cross over. So string number 1 at the front, string number 4 at the back. If you have this, that means you've done it correctly. So you can take the 2 working strings and pull them away from each other. So taking strings 1 and 4 and pull. And as you pull, we can also use our thumb to hold down the filler strings to keep it nice and taut. Or you can use some tape to do that instead. In terms of tension, we're looking for medium to slightly tighter tension, not too tight and not too loose. If it's too tight, it might get tangled and twisted and very small. If it's too loose, you won't see the knot very well. So think medium to slightly tighter tension. So pull on those working strings to take your knot right up to just underneath the 2 lark's head knots. So your half square knot should sit just underneath your lark's head knots. And there you should have your first half square knot, which is a horizontal line and a lump on the right hand side. And you can count this by counting either the horizontal line or the lump on the right. So 1 horizontal line or 1 lump on the right equals 1/2 square knot. So we're going to do this over and over and over again. And if you keep on going, it's going to start spiraling off to the right hand side. So we're going to keep on doing this, starting with string number 1 and bringing it over and across the other strings. So take string number 1 over and across all the other strings to get that number 4 shape. Pick up string number 4 and bring it to the front. So it comes over the top of the tail of string number 1. And you're going to take string number 4 between your fingers and slide it underneath the filler strings diagonally to the left hand side where the hole is on the left. And then we're going to pull string number 4 all the way through the hole on the left. You're then back to that checkpoint where they all should cross over in the centre. So string number 1 should be at the front and string number 4 should be at the back. If you have that, you've done that correctly. So you're going to grab your working strings and pull to tighten. And then you tighten up your second half square knot just underneath your first, and you'll get another horizontal line and another little lump on the side. So we want to think about consistency of tension. Consistency of tension is key here. So we're going to keep on going, making half square knots, and the more you do, you will start seeing that spiral form. You will see that string number 1 will start to pick up and want to come over to the right hand side to make your spiral. So when string number 1 starts to pick up like this and wants to go over to the right, it begins to get awkward to do your half square knots. So what I like to do is I like to do a little trick to help it spiral and also make it easier to make the knot. So I'm going to take string number 1 on my left hand side and I'm going to bring it over and across all the other strings. So I'm going to take string number 1 over and across all the other strings to the right hand side, and that's going to be the new string number 4. I'm then going to take the old string number 4 and tuck it underneath the filler strings to the left hand side. So string number 1 goes over the top to the right and string number 4 goes underneath to the left. So strings 1 and 4 are interchangeable. You can switch them over at any point, and then we can carry on the same technique. So again, carrying on making your half square knots, and that's going to help really make that spiral form even more. And there you have it. So as you can see, the more half square knots you make, the more the spiral begins to form, and it's a really, really lovely knot to make there. So that is the half square knot. We are now going to do the gathering knot. So the gathering knot basically holds all the cords together nice and securely so that it doesn't come undone. So this is great for things like plant pot holders or on bags. It's a really good knot to learn. So I like to place mine horizontally like this, but you can have it vertically, you can have it the opposite way round. It's whatever feels comfortable for you. So first thing we need to do is we need to cut an extra bit of cord. So you can cut it to whatever length you would like. I normally cut it around 50 centimetres, but you could do more, you could do less, it's completely up to you. So I'm going to lie one end flat down on the table, doesn't matter which end, and I'm going to bend it back on itself. So it kind of makes like a fishing hook look to it. So when I bend it back, you can bend it back to whatever amount you would like. I normally do mine to about 7 or 8 centimetres. So the little part that I bent back, the very end that I bent back on itself, I usually measure that about 7 or 8 centimetres, and I think that is a good size, but you can do it shorter or longer. We're then going to pinch about 3/4 of the way up the fishing hook so that we see 3 key elements. So we will have a hoop, and I like that to face down towards my long loose cords. We will have a tiny piece sticking up at the top, and then we will have the leftover of the 50 centimetres, the long cord as well, sticking up to the top. So where you've pinched it, you're going to pick that up and place that over the top of your knots. So I've made a half square knot spiral chain here. So where we pinched it, we're going to place that just underneath your very last knot. So place that over the top, and then you're going to let go and you're going to grab the entire keychain or the entire knot, whatever you've made there. So I'm grabbing just below the spiral chain that I'm working with here. And what you're going to do is you're going to take the long loose cord and you're going to start wrapping it around the entire chain as tightly as you can. Now the first time you wrap all the way around, it's going to overlap on itself, but for all the other times that it wraps around, you're going to do it side by side as tight as you can. Now the two key things here is that you don't cover up that tiny piece sticking out at the top, and you don't cover up the entire loop that you made. You still need to see those two elements. So you need at least a little bit of the hoop showing, and you definitely need to see the tiny bit at the top poking out as well. So keep on wrapping it around as tight as you can, and you can decide how many times you want to wrap that cord around. And you want to just make sure that you have at least a little bit left over of that long loose cord, because we're going to need that in a minute. So after you've finished wrapping your cord around, you're going to take the leftover of that long loose cord and you're going to come from the top and it goes down into the hoop and pull that through so it's out of the way. My other hand is still holding on to the gathering knot while I am pulling the excess through the hoop. So this is the magic part here. We're going to grab that tiny piece sticking up at the top and we're going to pull. And as we pull that tiny piece, watch what happens to the hoop. The hoop will start to disappear underneath your gathering knot. As you pull that hoop, make sure that you keep on pulling that long loose cord through so it keeps out of the way. And the second that hoop completely disappears underneath your gathering knot, that is when you stop pulling. And usually that little piece that we have been pulling, once it gets very tough to pull, that's normally a clear sign to tell you to stop pulling. So once that hoop has disappeared, that's when we stop. Otherwise, if you do, the hoop will come out at the other side and your gathering knot won't work. Once you've done that, your knot is done. So all we have to do is get rid of the excess. So you can cut the excess cord either side, right near to the gathering knot to make sure that it's nice and neat. You can add a dab of fabric glue or hot glue to give it an extra sense of security or to smooth out any fluffy bits, but normally if you do it tight enough, it should be absolutely fine. Usually the gathering knot is at the end of a chain or a tassel, so any excess loose cords that you have underneath it, you can also trim away. And if you have a nice cord that can brush out, so like a single twist cord, you can always use a comb or a brush and brush out the ends to get a lovely tasseled frayed effect underneath your gathering knot. And there you have your complete gathering knot. So the next knot that we're going to do is the square knot. Now the square knot is probably one of the more difficult foundation knots, but I think it's one of the most important because I find that it appears in a lot of patterns. So for this case, we're going to attach it onto a dowel. So I'm going to get a cord, again, at about 2 meters, 200 centimeters, and I'm going to tie a lark's head knot onto the dowel. I'm then going to get a second cord, exactly the same length, so 200 centimeters, 2 meters. Folding it in half and attaching it onto the dowel using a lark's head knot. Again, I'm going to stick down the dowel just to keep it secure as I make the square knot, but you're going to begin by making a half square knot. So like I showed you previously, so the same applies for this knot. String number 1 is on your left, string number 2 and 3 are the filler strings in the middle, and string number 4 is on the right. So 1 and 4 are your working strings and 2 and 3 are your filler strings. So you're going to start the same way as before, making a half square knot. So you're going to take string number 1 over and across all the other strings into a number 4 shape. I'm going to place my hand on the other strings to hold them down, and then I'm going to take string number 4 and bring it to the front. So it sits over the top of the tail of string number 1. I'm then going to take string number 4, pinching it between my fingers, and I'm going to take it diagonally underneath the filler strings to the hole on the left. And I'm going to pull string number 4 all the way through the hole on the left. Once you've done that, you will come to your first checkpoint. So for the square knot, we're going to have 2 checkpoints, but the first checkpoint is the same as before. So string number 1 should be at the front and string number 4 should be at the back where all the strings cross over in the center. So once you have this, you're going to pull the working strings, so strings 1 and 4, to tighten up the knot, and you're going to bring your first half square knot all the way up to the top just underneath your lark's head knots. And again, think about your tension, so medium to slightly tighter tension, and you'll have a horizontal line just under the lark's head knots and a little lump on the right. Now once we've got this, we now have to finish off our square knot. So we need to go backwards. We've just gone forwards and now we need to go backwards because a square knot consists of 2 half square knots. One goes forwards and one goes backwards. So to start the backwards half square knot, you start with string number 4 and you bring that over and across all the other strings. So string number 4 goes over string number 3, over string number 2 and over string number 1. You're then going to take string number 1 and bring that to the front. So string number 1 goes over the top of the tail of string number 4. Once you've done that, you're going to take string number 1 and it's going to go diagonally underneath the filler strings to the hole on the right. So pinching string number 1 between your fingers, it's going to go underneath the filler strings to the hole on the right, and you're going to pull it all the way through. And once you'll have that, you will have your second checkpoint. So this time string number 4 is at the front where they all cross over and string number 1 is at the back. So 4 is at the front and 1 is at the back. So if you've done that correctly, then we can finish off our square knot by pulling the working strings. So strings 1 and 4, and you're going to pull to tighten it up so it sits just underneath your first half square knot. So what you will end up this time with is another horizontal line and a lump on the left this time. And if you look closely, it looks like a little square, a little box, and that is your first square knot. So you can count your square knots by either counting the lumps on the left, so 1 lump on the left equals 1 square knot, or by the horizontal lines. So 2 horizontal lines equals 1 square knot, or 1 lump on the left equals 1 square knot. So remember, a square knot is a forwards half square knot followed by a backwards half square knot. And you can continue to do this to make a chain of square knots by going forwards, backwards, forwards, backwards. The biggest issue I find with the square knot is knowing which direction to go. A lot of people get distracted and forget which direction to go in. So there are different tricks to get you back on track again. I will show you one method here. So I like to use like the little lumps on either side to help you back on track. So you can see we start off with a lump on the right, then a lump on the left, a lump on the right, a lump on the left, and it makes a lovely little pattern. So we can use these lumps to help us get back on track. So you can see here I finished with a lump on the left hand side. So now I need a lump on the right. So I'm going to make a forwards half square knot. So that means we start with string number 1. So we take string number 1 over and across, pick up string number 4 over the tail of string number 1, and take string number 4 diagonally underneath to the hole on the left and pull that through. And that will make a lump on the right. Now, because we have a lump on the right, we now need a lump on the left. So to get a lump on the left, we do a backwards half square knot. We go in reverse. So we start with string number 4. So I'm going to take string number 4 and bring it over and across all the other strings. We're then going to take string number 1 and bring it to the front. So over the top of the tail of string number 4. And then we're going to take string number 1 diagonally underneath to the hole on the right, and we're going to pull that all the way through. Now when we tighten this up, we should end up with a lump back on the left again. And that's one of the ways to get back on track. Now, if you make a mistake and you go in the wrong direction, what happens is that you actually start to form a spiral, because if you go in the same direction more than once, it wants to start making a spiral. So I'm now going to go the wrong way. So I'm going to go backwards twice. I wanted to actually make a lump on the right, but I'm going to make a lump on the left again to show you what happens. So can you see it doesn't look quite right? It doesn't follow the pattern. It's wanting to start spiraling off to the left hand side. It doesn't have that nice chain effect anymore, doesn't look like shoelaces. It's wanting to spiral off to the left. So you can usually see when you go wrong, and if you go wrong, just undo the knot, use whatever trick it is that you find easiest to get back on track, and that should hopefully help you. And there you have your square knot and your square knot chain. The last foundation knot I'm going to show you is called the double half hitch knot. Now for the double half hitch knot, I've already attached 3 cords. So again, I used the same amount. I did 2 meters for each cord, 200 centimeters, and I attached it onto a dowel using the lark's head knots. So I have 3 lark's head knots sitting on the dowel. Now for a double half hitch knot, it's really cool because you can basically go in whatever direction you would like, and it makes a wall or a ridge of knots. So for this, you're going to start with the string on the left hand side, and that's going to become your guide string. So we're going to lie the guide string over the top of all the other strings, and whichever direction the guide string goes, that is where the wall is going to form. So you can do wave, you can do diagonal, you can do vertical, horizontal lines, spirals, whatever you would like. So for this here, we're going to go horizontally across. So I'm going to pop my guide string going across to the right hand side, and it goes over the top of all the other chords. I'm then going to take string number 2, so it's the next one on the left hand side, and it's basically going to make a loop over the top of the guide string and then back under the guide string. So I'm going to take string number 2, it's going to go over the top of the guide string and then back under the guide string and through the gap. So it'll look a little something like this. We're then going to hold the guide string in one hand to keep it nice and tight, and with the other hand we're going to pull on string number 2 to tighten it up, and it's going to tighten up that loop to sit on the very left hand side. So pull string number 2, and then with your thumb you're going to need to push the knot right into the left hand corner, because sometimes it can lie down and we want it to stand up. Now because it's a double, we need to do that all over again. So I'm going to take that exact same string, so string number 2, and it's going to go back over the guide string and then under the guide string through the gap, and then we're going to pull to tighten it. And this is going to start making a ridge wall. Again, use your thumb to push it right next to the previous hitch knot to get that wall to form. And then once we've done that, we can get rid of string number 2, chuck it out of the way, because we are now done with that, because we've done 2 knots because it was a double. We'll just chuck it out of the way. We're then going to do the same with string number 3, so the next one along. We're going to take string number 3 and pop it over the guide string, under the guide string, and pull string number 3 to tighten up that hoop so that the next knot will sit right next to the previous 2 knots. And we're going to keep on going. So we do 2 knots on each string. After string number 3, you're going to take string number 4 and do exactly the same thing. So 2 knots on each string. You're going to do 2 knots on the 5th string and 2 knots on the 6th string. And that's going to make a horizontal wall or horizontal ridge. Now, once you get to the end, you can go back again. So you can make a horizontal line back in the opposite direction, or you could do a diagonal line, whatever you like. So I'm going to make a horizontal line going back to the left. So I'm going to use that same guide string, and it's going to go over the top of all the other chords, but this time it's going to the left. I'm now going to take the furthest chord to the right, and that's going to be my first string. And I'm going to take that over the guide string, under the guide string and through the gap. And I'm going to pull on that first chord on the right hand side to tighten up that loop. And I'm going to push with my thumb to make sure that knot sits right on the very right hand side to start making this new wall. And then because it's a double, we're doing that again. So taking that same string over the guide string, under the guide string, and then pull to tighten. And you're going to do the same thing with each of those chords that are hanging down. They're going to go over the guide string, under the guide string, and pull to tighten. and you're doing 2 knots on each cord. So as you can see, this has now made a horizontal wool to the left. So it's a really useful knot to learn, and it's quite functional. You can use it for coasters, placemats, all sorts of things. So I'm going to show you here how you can go in a slightly different direction. So this time I'm going to make the guide string go diagonal. So it goes over the top of all the other cords, and then again, using each cord, I'm going to go over the guide string and under the guide string and pull to tighten. And again, I'm doing this twice on each cord. And wherever that guide string is sitting, that is where the wool is going to form. So as you can see, I'm holding it diagonally. So the wool is going to form diagonally this time instead of horizontally. And there you have a diagonal double half hitch knot wool. So we're coming to the end of this week's episode. Hopefully this one was quite nice, having it both as audio and video. I think it's quite useful to be able to see those foundation knots. As usual, you can have a look at the blog that accompanies this podcast, and that is on my website at www.gizanartin.com. And then also, I would appreciate it if you could join my Patreon. It's there to have a lovely community to chat amongst each other about our love of fibre arts and fibre crafts. And it really does help to support the podcast as well. So if you can have a look at my Patreon, that would be amazing. In next week's episode, we're going to look at getting started in needle felting. So thank you so much again for joining me, and I will see you in the next one.